Hey, good evening. This is Nicolina Nix, and you're here for another episode of Women, Wit, and Wine. And tonight I am here with the amazing Gora, who is a fellow comedian of mine. And, she's been at it far longer than I have, but always just an amazing talent for Albuquerque, New Mexico, here in Albuquerque. And again, I'm here with my co-host Judith.
Yo! Hey everybody! It's been another week.
It has been another week.
It has been a week.
Since our last show. I would like to welcome you, Anne. How's it going?
Going good.
Yeah.
How about you?
Thanks for joining us.
Oh, glad to be here.
I'm doing good. I'm recovering. So I'm recovering. My daughter moved out, so that kind of makes me a little excited and a little sad at the same time. So we cope with it.
And coming off a big show.
Oh yeah,
Friday was a really awesome show.
That was an amazing show. We had a packed house.
Yeah.
I love it. I love when the ladies get together and do a show. Yes. I love all that estrogen in the room. I just think it multiplies. And I don't know. I don't know if it makes the guys break out or if they just start cycling with us too. I haven't figured out if they start cycling in the same, with us.
The rumor is men have a cycle. Yes. It's very true. Men have a cycle. They go through the same thing as women do. The difference is they don't have the organs that they bleed. They don't do that.
They say that's like a hormonal cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, if we could go like that upper room reminds me of clandestine meetings. I like that place. I love that room for comedy, and I all those women. If we could stay there even longer, who knows what it might do to the beer? I don't know.
I don't know.
Estrogen leakage into the beer. Right?
All I know is it's a pretty hoppy room.
I don't know.
It's a pretty hoppy room.
It was pretty hopping. It was a good show. I always love ladies shows. And I think that Albuquerque has one of the best communities of female comics. Actually,
I agree. I think that it was actually a really good show. I mean, to sit back and listen, to even people I hadn't heard before as comedians. So and you've been in the comedy scene for how long?
7 years.
7 years?
Yeah.
That's hot.
But that's not where you started.
Huh?
But that's not where you started. You started in burlesque.
Yeah. I started in burlesque out here.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say also I previously done spoken word and some comedy in my teens, but I did burlesque when I first moved out here because I love dancing.
Yeah.
I love dancing. And I love the costuming. I love the female community that burlesque brings together.
Right. I mean, I think it's definitely a support of the feminine wiles, the feminine being presence.
I would say it's supportive of women taking charge of how they want to be seen sexually. Because with a burlesque dancer, she gets to choose what song, she gets to make her own costume. She doesn't have any rules. She can go up and present herself however she wants to, whether that be funny, gross. Some women like to go up there and do some crazy acts. I like to do some crazy acts. Or, women who, don't shave their armpits or legs. The thing is, it's not male-centered sexual expression.
Mm-hmm.
It's not for men, it's for ourselves.
Right. I would think you're out there to express yourself. It's not that you're out there to appease the male population. Like, for example, when I'm in a relationship as a female, for me, of how I was raised is I dress for my partner. I smell for my partner. The perfume that I wear is because I know my partner finds it appeasing or appealing to them. Now, I was in a relationship for 10 years, and he would wear Bay Rum was the cologne. And it's like a clove, and it's a mixture of other stuff. And I'm like, I hated the smell of that. But he liked the smell, and he thought it was okay to wear it. I'm like, yeah, but you're supposed to be wearing it for me. For me.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you wear that, I don't want to touch you.
Oh.
So I think in burlesque, it's about expression.
Yeah.
So that's a different take on it. I hadn't ever looked at it that way. Since I started doing comedy, it's the first time I've ever been exposed to burlesque, and I love every stinking second of it. My daughters were dancers, but I had not seen burlesque till recently. And oh my God, I just totally enthralled with every part of it. Also, the vintage aspect of it is just bringing back. Some of it is definitely bringing back an art form.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I didn't think of it about being for the performer herself, and maybe that's what you can pick up on as a woman that makes it so appealing. Definitely different. I'm not berating a bump and grind on a pole, but I definitely enjoy the burlesque, and I can see the artistry in it in a different direction.
But bump and grinding on a pole is its own thing, and that's like something women can do without. I'm just saying, like, in general, it is, there's nothing wrong. I always like to say there's nothing wrong with stripping, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with bump and grind on a pole. But, especially with burlesque, it's just kind of, you can tell that this woman is almost like living out her own little fantasy on stage.
Exactly. It's the artistry that is involved. It's different. Just music is different. You know, we have different genres of music. And that's why I see the dance and the performance, but the idea of, I like how you explained it, about it being an expression of the dancer. As opposed maybe than an expression or a painting for someone else.
Yeah.
This is her expression. That's what I was trying to get at.
Yeah.
Yeah, that there's nothing wrong with the pole. I'm not,
I'm also clarifying for myself.
Yeah.
Because I always like to throw that out there. Because I don't want to be seen as somebody who shames. Because I was like, by what I said, I wasn't trying to knock anybody else. So that's what I was trying to say.
I understand that. So tell me about what your favorite performance would be as a burlesque artist.
Mine or somebody else's?
Yours. Like, what's your favorite show that you like to put on, you know?
Oh, gosh. It depends. I had a real closeness to one piece that was, like, moody. It was to Leonard Cohen's In My Secret Life.
I love Leonard Cohen.
Yeah. I love Leonard Cohen, too. It was to In My Secret Life.
Mm-hmm.
I performed it, 7 years ago at the Southwest burlesque thing, and I, come out in a trench coat, and I turn a newspaper into a fan and do a fan dance with it.
Oh, wow.
I also like fun acts. Like, one of my favorite acts was to do, milk and cereal, which, I turn myself into, a giant bowl of cereal and eat it off myself.
That's awesome.
Just for the surprise factor. And then, of course, I loved doing group work.
Mm-hmm.
I especially with General Blackery, who some of you've met. She and I used to do duets together and do crazy stuff together.
I think the first time I saw her was at a Vagrant Variety, and she did a reading of "Oh Me So Horny."
Yes, she is amazing.
That was pretty interesting to hear it in that version and as a spoken word kind of thing.
It was pretty jazzy, my man.
So you did a lot of shows with her.
Yeah.
Okay.
Were the venues the same when you started, or were there other venues or different venues here in Albuquerque for burlesque? And then we can figure out the comedy thing.
I'm thinking here. Well, I mean, here's the thing. There were less venues.
Okay.
There were a lot less venues.
Mm-hmm.
We did shows here in town twice a year. We would put on basically when I started, there were I was in Burlesque Noir,
Mm-hmm.
and they put on shows twice a year. And then there was the Southwest Burlesque Festival, which was run by a different woman, but we were always invited, and it was once a year.
That's a lot.
So
fewer venues.
that is a lot. Basically, it was the launch pad and the chemo, and that was it. And for all other opportunities, we had to go to Denver. We had to go to New York City. We had to go and apply at festivals if you wanted to keep performing. So you had a lot of time, though, downtime in between to go and perform in other places. But, then all of a sudden there was this burlesque boom, and now all these places have burlesque, and now that's great. But sometimes, it's just like with comedy, you hear people complain, and you're like, you kidding? Don't complain that you guys have so many venues now. You have so many places you can do this now. Don't complain that you don't think there are enough shows, because there's plenty of shows that you can get onto, and it's just, you do especially, it's like, man, I would have, and then I set up a show the same time another woman set up a show. We both set up variety shows at the same time. I had been planning Vagrant Variety for about a year. And then this other performer decided she was going to do a variety show, but with no comedy.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it was just
You can't have a variety show without comedy, can you?
Well, she wanted to do more vaudeville acts, and I wanted vaudeville acts, but I wanted it kind of. For me, it was an opportunity to bring comedy and burlesque together.
Mm-hmm.
See, wasn't it traditionally in vaudeville that way too? There was always a comedian. It was primarily a burlesque show, but there would be a comedian and maybe
Yeah.
So I saw that as being a nice traditional pairing. Of course, the comedians are going to be body, and so is the MC.
Yeah.
How fun.
Yeah.
So
is that what transitioned you into comedy, was combining the two?
Into doing comedy out here. At first I wasn't going to be so heavy with the comedy,
Mm-hmm.
but then I just, I forgot how much I loved it. So I just kind of went hard at it. Especially because there were so many new ways for me to do things again. When I was doing things, it's whenever I have something new that I can do, I get real excited and I go for it.
Yeah.
And so, things opened up for me comedically, and then I was able to do, some stuff with Jason Green when we had our little sketch duo. That was fun.
Yeah.
And, just different things. Different things.
Yeah? I like it. I like doing comedy.
Yeah.
I think it's a good outlet.
Yeah. We would do little videos. We had these little tiny 10-second sketches that we would put up. Little things like that. You just kind of, when things open up like that, and stage work, being able to do little sketches and stuff, it's awesome and it's fun. And then it's expanded on itself as I keep going.
And you say out here, were you doing this where you came from before?
Mm-hmm.
So, and that was New Hampshire.
Yeah, I had been doing spoken word there, and I had also been doing spoken word at house shows, and a lot of those turned comedic, and then I would just start ranting. So it sort of became a comedy act.
Okay. So would you say so they were mostly lighthearted, or were you dark? Was it darks?
Well, I mean, it was dark stuff because I was living a dark life. I mean, things were just really difficult for me in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt so alienated from the people that I was around that when I went up there, when I went on stage, I just remember just saying, I want to tell somebody something. I just want to talk about it. And so I would just start going off about it, like my mother being in prison, and then my dad, moving away, being in foster homes, having cancer, just things that were just very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
So it just felt like a really creative way to unload.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, for me, it's like I write poetry. I write articles. I write books. I write, and my comedy. It's a release for the pain. I came from a dark background. Not sounding as much as yours was dark, but it still was dark. It was, it was dealing with, for me, feeling abandoned by the fact that I was only raised by my mother, and my father wasn't really in the picture, but then learning later that it was because my father wasn't in the picture, and it wasn't that, but, you cope with it, sitting in a therapist chair at the age of 5, and all through my entire life, because this became a norm, and then at 13, suicidal ideations came in, and it was every other year. I was trying to kill myself. And so comedy and writing become an outlet for this. To talk about that. Yeah. I mean, to where you can cope with it. For me, I can cope with it because I can make fun of myself. I can make fun of where I've come from. What I've been through.
Yeah, but in what, for me, I find most liberating about that is we're more the same than we are different. And so when you go up, and even though you're telling these outlandish stories, even though you're exaggerating in this, you're telling this like really horrible story, there's a baseline like emotion that people can all they can almost all agree with you on. Like they can all, and so in a way, you and the room are all together.
Yeah, the connection point, and the outrageousness makes it funny. Yeah, but they see themselves in it. They see that kernel, and that's for me. Working through a lot of painful and crap that I've been through. Again, I don't know. There's probably not a single person on the stage, and that doesn't have a crazy background, some kind of crazy origin story from their family. And I'm the only surviving sibling in mine, and that's functioning. And they have case managers and people watching them. So I ended up, I'm alone. So, but I have children, and but going forward, a lot of the crazy crap that happens to you when you're young, you have ways of responding. This time in my life, was when, I've said it before, is when I finally took charge of my own life, get to make my own decisions. And so that outlet of comedy, I agree. It's, for me, it's like being okay to be outrageous, because how things really were, I could not, like, it was hard, crazy. I couldn't share it for me, but allowing myself to go out and say outrageous things, quote, unquote, saying dirty things in public, that no one's going to beat me, nothing bad's going to happen. To get out there and say that, my shtick is making fun of my age, making fun of sexuality and sexiness and, laughing about it and having people laugh at me about it and laugh with me. But it's the connection, whatever, even if I like the connection point, it's like you said, is whatever we get out there, is that's what makes it funny, when we find the connections, when our audience is able to connect with us. And I think that's possible no matter, people have their preferred comedy styles. We all have different styles.
Yeah.
But when they can connect with you.
Everybody has something different. I mean, you said something, growing up, you said your mom was in prison?
Yeah.
Mind if I ask?
Oh, she counterfeited money.
What's that?
It was very...
At least she was doing a white-collar crime.
I mean, well...
I'm just saying.
It was a very weird house growing up because my mother was very, very bipolar. And so growing up, it was already difficult when my mother and my father were still married because she was always trying to kill herself. So, like, every few weeks she would be carted off. And it became like a huge, like, depression point in the house. And then my mother and my father would fight so much that, like, he would beat her, and then it's like, we're going to leave Daddy in the middle of the night, that kind of deal.
Yeah.
Right? And so but they got divorced, and I remember them getting divorced, and even as, like, a 7-year-old, I was like, whew, yeah.
Thank God, right?
But after that, because she had, like, no money, she decided, well, I'm going to start counterfeiting money. And so it was a weird time because she had a lot of shady people around her, and as a child, you get this idea that something's wrong, but you don't quite know what it is.
Exactly. I know that one.
And
I know that one very well.
And so it's just kind of like, you just don't know. But my mother, this didn't just come out of a vacuum. My mother is, like, the daughter of Swedish immigrants. And these guys were not all Swedish immigrants are like this, but my mother's family, her father and her uncle and one of her uncles were, like, con artists. My grandfather, like, counterfeited checks.
Wow.
And
it was a way of life.
And and he would go from, like, town to town getting money from people for ventures and then running off with their money.
So he's kind of like a gypsy a little bit.
Yeah, and so he would do that, and and that's kind of like, and my mom looked up to that, so she went off and she did that, and so it was kind of like
family business.
Yeah, it was some kind of
they
wild.
Yeah, it was
family business.
So and you talk about counterfeit money. I used this as a prop, and I went to the copy store to have this made. And they said, we can't copy this. I said, are you kidding me? When have you seen a $100 bill that looks like this? Big. Of course you can copy this.
Well, a lot of copy machines and printers won't, like, they're mechanic. They're designed not to do that, which is funny. But I mean, my mother, when she did it, she actually got a set of plates from the Mint.
Yeah.
I don't even know how she got a set of plates.
Wow. That's a lot of intelligence there, though.
Yeah.
That's a lot of intelligence. I have to give it that. Absolutely.
Well, yeah, absolutely. That would be, that's ingenious.
To survive my childhood, I was always trying to find the bright side.
Yeah.
No. Oh, wow. That was really, and then as a parent of like 60 zillion kids, whatever. Yeah, it's like,
Yeah, my mother was a very intelligent woman. I mean, she was
absolutely
scary intelligent, and she was like brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
But it's. I mean, look what she used it on, and I don't mean like look what she used it on. She got in jail. I mean like. Look what she used it on, and then she burned out, and then she basically crashed her car into the goddamn mountain and drank herself to death. Just like my grandfather did. Just like my uncle did. Or just like my great-uncle did, too. I mean, it's just, these things, it sounds a lot better than it is, so oftentimes, like, I'm just kind of like, I just kind of shrug my shoulders and try not to romanticize it that much. Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, the truth of the matter is it's shitty. And I don't mean like, I mean, she lived a shitty life.
Yeah.
She was very miserable. She may have been brilliant, but she was incredibly miserable. And I felt that misery because she made me feel that misery all the time. And, her misery and the way that she abandoned her first child and she treated me made me realize, like, I can't have kids because I'm afraid that I'm going to treat my children like that. I mean, my mother's mother treated her like shit and basically kind of, like, didn't want her around. My mother abandoned her first child and then eventually abandoned us for a life of crime because she decided, not only, my crime is more important than you guys, my drinking is more important than you guys, having a boyfriend is more important than you guys. At some point you just have to realize that there's something about your ovaries that, like, that's just like, trust me, the odds aren't in your favor, little ones. So, like, if I have a kid...
There's no Katniss in there.
Yeah, like, I can't imagine...
Katniss isn't coming.
No, I was just like... I'm like, this is... I mean, it doesn't even matter. Like, I can imagine myself being like, I want to have a baby, and as soon as it comes out, like, some kind of chemical kicks in that's like my animal... they talk about, like, your animal brain, like the animal brain that my reptilian brain kicks in and goes, I'm going to throw this baby in a dumpster. Like, that's my animal brain. Like, most women's is to cuddle it and care for it and put it in a safe place. And
mine was to lock it in the closet. And I wonder why she hates me. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Mine would be like, I wonder if I could eat this baby. Like...
I remember thinking when I was a kid, well, probably more as a teenager, like turning into a teenager, in regards to my mom, was like, and in my generation, you have to remember, I was a little girl in the 60s, so it was a different time, and I remember thinking, not every woman should have children. Not every woman should have children, and that was in a time where, really, you're supposed to have children. I was like, I don't think Mom was supposed to have kids. I think that would have been a better choice.
I didn't want children.
Yeah.
I didn't. I have 2 children, but I didn't want children.
Yeah.
But I also had this moralistic idea in my head that abortion was not an option. Yeah. I was adult enough to have sex. I should be adult enough to raise my child. And so I have two beautiful daughters today, and if I could go back and do it again, I would have never had children. Do I regret my children? Absolutely not.
But you raised your children.
I did.
That's the thing. That's the important thing.
I did. I raised my children, even though I'll admit my youngest daughter had to deal with dysfunctional, fucked up shit for me. The suicide attempts, the depression. I had cancer, and when I bought my house, just before I bought my house, I was diagnosed with cancer. I had thyroid cancer, and I spent the entire summer after I bought this house drunk on my couch because I just couldn't cope with life. And my daughter was taking care of me. My 8-year-old daughter was taking care of her mother. And I regret that. I wish I could go back and change all of that. But she's dealt with it. And, I say this, because 2011 was the last time I attempted suicide. And my boss came and took me to the hospital, and I'd been doing it for so long. I know what to say. I know what to say to come home. No, I wasn't really trying to kill myself. I was just really tired. And my daughter walked in my bedroom and said, "I can't believe you did that to me." Because I got up that morning and I took her to school and I dropped her off and I came home and I overdosed. And had it not been for my boss getting into my house because there was a key out in my shed, I would have been dead. And I'm sorry for what I would have done to my daughter had it gone through. Because although she was 16, 17 years old, she still would have had to cope.
Yeah.
With what I did. And she came in and she goes, "I'm angry with you because I can't believe you would do that to me."
Well, my mom made sure to take her suicide and drag it over many, many years and leave many, many disparaging voicemails for me, so it could be worse.
So,
I like that. I love you, Ann. I love you, Ann. I love you. I love you. I kind of like, I have my own little stories, whatever, but again, I prefer, or it's my wiring, or it's my DNA, or I like to pretend it's my choice, but it's probably just all freaking, I got the right chemical soup in my DNA. I like to look for the bright side. It's like, oh, but look, you made the right choice for you and your ovaries. You're so clever and smart, and I'm so happy. And you're not going to. And the way you said you did your voicemails with your mom, it's like, oh my God, I never had the balls to say anything to my mom.
Oh no, I didn't say anything to my mom. She said things to me.
Oh no! Did you ever tell her off ever?
Oh hell no!
Were you afraid of?
Yeah. I was afraid of her.
Me too. Terrified.
I'm terrified of my mother.
If she came back as a ghost, oh my God, I would.
I'm not like one of those like Ouija's work thing. If I was like on a Ouija board and somebody was like, "Angelina, your mother's in the room," I'd be like, "Bullshit." And then if the Ouija said, "You're fat," I would be like, "Yes, my mother's in the room. My mother is definitely in the room."
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I had that mom. My mom was one of those people who's like, nothing was ever good enough. She was never happy with anything. I could bring home Jesus Christ, and she would come back at me and say, "He seems like a nice man, but his hair's a little bit long, and what's with the funny shoes?"
Yeah.
Yeah. My mom was just crazy. My mom was just flat out crazy. Just in the schizophrenia type thing. And the thing is, so it was, you never knew which mom you had in any given day.
Yeah, my mother was that way.
So one day you might walk home and she's smiling and you're like, woohoo! But you knew not to get too excited because she could go away in a second. So that's
a bipolar thing.
Yeah, my mother was bipolar.
My mom wasn't. She was.
Schizophrenia. Schizoaffective. It moves faster than bipolar.
Mm-hmm.
My mother's drinking would affect her mood, so it would fluctuate a little bit more. But schizoaffective happens faster because bipolar. Usually, what happens is there'll be a little while, at least a couple of weeks of my mom riding high on the hog. We're all having a good old time, and then it's you never know until literally you come home from school and she's tried to kill herself. Like, literally, it just snaps.
Yeah.
But, I mean...
And the alcohol dampens it somewhat. It's a little self-medicating.
Yeah.
I mean, it may make them all depressed, but it does... there's a reason people drink when they have... It's self-medicating. It helps.
Sometimes it quiets the voices in your head.
Yeah, no, it does. I mean, there's a reason. It's a central nervous system anesthetic, and there's not a whole lot of great treatment out there. There's a reason people do it.
Well, I mean, I admit I'm bipolar. I take my medication now. I drank for many years to self-medicate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you can't beat yourself up or anyone else up in the sense of when you're doing the best you can.
Yeah, no,
but once
difficult.
you get education and you get help and there's support.
Well, it's not just that, but it's like when you getting help isn't as easy as it sounds.
Oh my God, no.
I mean, because
no one knows anything.
I mean, the thing is, like, it's difficult because I've been on medication cycles since I was 13, and so when you're that young, you don't understand. First off, it's very difficult for anything to work pretty decently because you're going through so many hormonal changes as a teenager already, and so you're having a difficult time finding the right medication, and then and then you become resistant to medication, and then so like what would happen is throughout like my 20s, I would be like resistant, and then I would be good, and then I'd be like, I don't need this, and then I'd chuck it, and then I would be resistant until something really bad happened, and I realized, oh crap, like I'm really just gonna like jump off this building if I don't go back on medication, and so
it's kind of like trying to hit a moving target when you're trying to medicate a teen, but it's like a moving target, and then the thing is, from over the years, what they think is good treatment changes radically. Oh, you don't need that. I mean, there wasn't even hardly a diagnosis for what my mom, she slid under the wire. That's the thing with schizophrenia. They can sort of function. And then as a woman, she had a husband that was out there making money. You know what I mean?
Well, I thought you were gonna say, as a woman, people just dismissed her as crazy. Anyway, they were like, "Ah, she's a woman.
She's just a woman. It's that time of the month."
No, she didn't have to go out in public. No, I mean, she really didn't have to go out in public, is what I'm saying, and she didn't have to go and like if she had been unemployed, she didn't have to go apply for anything. My father was working and had the check, so she just made it to the grocery store. And that was a challenge towards, different times in her life. She didn't have to, get out of the house. And then no one was allowed in there. So it was hidden. It was hidden, and it was a different time. And we weren't about to tell anyone anything about anything that was going on at home. But just different times. And now there's not only there's names and, there's diagnoses, but that'll change too. That'll change.
Of course,
or it won't.
It'll change.
And the only reason I say it won't is because we're about to get blown up.
Oh. Yeah, well, and healthcare, really, yeah.
At least we'll go out with a bang.
Well, yeah, we don't have to worry about managed care. Maybe that's how he's handling it. We don't have to worry about it because they're just going to...
If you like your plan, you can keep your plan.
Exactly.
If you like your plan, you can keep it.
Exactly.
What if you don't got a plan? Well, my plan is...
Let me just get blown up. It won't matter.
Just blow me up.
It won't matter. Or we're going to blow each other up. We're going to drive cars into each other. Apparently, that's the thing of the week.
What do you mean that's the thing of the week? That is the worst. And I mean, it's not even just that somebody drove their car into somebody. It's the fact that it's a group of white nationalists. I am living in a country right now where there is a rise in white nationalism, and that is infuriating. I mean, I'm not saying that there wasn't already racist undertones to this entire America that we've been living in, because there has been, but the fact that these people feel like they could go out without covering their faces and carrying tiki torches is sickening.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the fact that they're just like,
And they're not the ones that got the car ran into. It was the people protesting the group that
Well,
had the car ran into.
well, you know,
Well, yeah,
That's
well,
how-
he was a white nationalist driving the car.
Oh, see,
But
that
then-
part I hadn't gotten. But no, I'm not surprised. Of course it had to be.
The reality
Who else was
is
driving the car?
violence begets violence. If we continue to be on a violent course, then our answer to violence is to be violent. So, where do you draw the line with that? Where do we draw the line with that?
I don't know, but there should be. Let's just say that right now we are removing the abilities to be firm in this country towards white nationalists and towards these hate groups. We have basically defunded the FBI's terrorism watch group, anti-terrorism watch group that targets only these hate groups. Donald Trump has basically been like, oh, I'm going to defund and break up these people who are basically only watching these hate groups, which needs to be happening. We need to be watching these hate groups. We need to, be, standing up to these hate groups and saying, like, this is not acceptable. And the fact is, the president had every chance to come out and denounce this, and he didn't. And that's a big part of it.
It's been silent. Has there been any tweets at all?
Well,
Since
he
this happened?
basically
I have to be honest with you guys, because I think we are so inundated with negativity in the world. I don't watch the news. I don't read the paper. I don't. I mean, if that makes me unaware or in denial, it's not that I'm in denial. I don't want to be absorbed with that. I think we are so surrounded by it every day. In the news, I mean, I worked a job where my job was to come in and turn on the television and watch the news all day. And it was just, it's sad. It's overwhelming. So I tune a lot of that out. I mean, I'm aware of what's going on.
I know, but I mean, it's like, but who picks up the check?
Right? It's true.
I
mean, it's true. I mean, I agree. But for me, it's just like, I just don't really, again, I'm not like, if you said, hey, look what happened on the news. My daughter calls me and I'm like, I don't watch the news.
Well, that's what I'm saying is.
Does that make me naive?
No, I mean, the thing is, it's not about naivety. It's even about, it's about like a kind of a low-key complicity to what's going on out there.
Mm-hmm. I guess I can see that.
Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, and it's something that, because I used to kind of take that tact myself.
Mm-hmm.
Because I used to be like, I all this crazy negativity, blah, blah, blah. God, what was I? I was living in Virginia when I had that, like, attitude. And slowly things started changing because I had to start dealing with issues in my daily life that were political. And then once you start realizing that there are people in their daily lives that are hurt on a political level,
mm-hmm.
then, I mean, because as white women, for the most part, we don't have to deal with things on a political level on a daily basis. And so it's easy to not think about these things, and when you finally see how things can hit people every single day on a political level, then you feel like, well, I can't just close my eyes. I can't just not watch the news, because at that point I'm just, I'm like one of these people who sits there and almost watches a car crash.
Yeah.
And doesn't help people, or doesn't call the police.
Or doesn't call the police, or doesn't say anything, because, I mean, the thing is, now more than ever, people need to know, I don't stand by this shit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there are all these people coming out of the woodwork saying, you know, that are literally coming out. Somebody at my boyfriend's work recently who had been friends with us, who had been to our house and played games with us, looked at him and said, I'm not lazy because I'm not Mexican. And he said that to Isaac, who is Mexican.
Wow.
These people feel emboldened by Trump's presidency.
Yeah.
And so now more than ever,
And that's not okay. That's not
we
okay.
need to say, I am not for this shit.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do this shit in front of me, I'm
call
gonna
you on it.
I'm gonna call you on it. And
I am that way. I mean, I'm pretty outspoken. You know, I don't think that anybody deserves to be mistreated. I mean, we're treated by the behavior that we were willing to accept from other people. And if you're willing to be treated like shit, you're going to be treated like shit. And so, yes, it's about standing up for yourself. I mean, I worked for a very misogynistic, my last job was very misogynistic. Absolutely. You know, I was somebody that stood up for myself. But again, I'm no longer employed there because I stood up for myself. But it doesn't make me wrong because I did the right thing for myself.
yeah,
I did what was in the best interest of me. And nobody has a right to put anybody down, to devalue them, to degrade them. We're really all equals. You know what? At the end of the day, if I cut your wrist, you white supremacist person, you're going to bleed the same fucking color as me.
yeah.
There really isn't that much of a difference.
I just hope it would be more. More blood.
Yeah,
More blood from that person.
It's a difficult time. It's a really difficult time. And I'm fearful for my son. I am fearful for my son on a daily basis.
And that's something that is very real.
It's
I mean,
very real.
It's very
And my
real.
daughters as
It was
well.
already real before, but now it's even worse.
Right.
It is. It is. I mean, I'm grateful that my two daughters of color are living in fairly safe places as long as they stay in their area. And that's weird. They both live out of state. Like Vanessa will be fine as long as she stays, you know, in the part of BC that she's in. You know, near the Beltway, kind of near DuPont Circle.
But you shouldn't have to have that kind of.
We
shouldn't have to have that kind of fear. I mean, unfortunately, yes, it's the way it is. But we shouldn't have to have that kind of fear.
We've dealt with it our whole lives, but it's not like it is now.
I mean, my oldest daughter is half Mexican. However, my mom, and I say this, my mom and my stepfather was a racist. My mom was married to that. So my daughter, who is half Mexican, half Anglo, was raised to be all white. Did I approve of it? Absolutely not. Because I thought my daughter should learn Spanish. My mom didn't want her to learn Spanish. Because my mom raised my oldest daughter.
Well, I mean, I'm half Puerto Rican, but for all intents and purposes, I am a white woman. As long as I can walk into a room and people treat me like I'm white, exactly. I am a white woman.
Right,
exactly.
And so, I mean, that is it. I mean, that's the thing. Is like, gosh, I remember meeting a woman when I lived in New Orleans, and she was an older woman, and she one time was talking about her job, which was a pretty cool job. She was a smart lady. I said, "Oh, that's a cool job. You're smart." And then she's like, "Yeah, I got to go to college." I was like, "Yeah." And she's like, "I was able to pass the paper bag test." And I said, "What is that?" She said, "Where I came from, because this was back in the day. This was back a long time ago." Or not a long time ago. This wasn't even that long ago when you think about it.
Right.
But she goes, if you were lighter than a paper bag, you could go to college.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, my daughter's grandmother from their father's side, clearly not from, was a college-educated black woman, and it was very rare. But she went to one of the Hobies, historically all-black colleges. She went to college in New Orleans, and it was. I was really tickled by that for my daughter's sake, and. But I told my daughters, I taught them that they were biracial. There's nothing wrong with both sides of the family. But I said, the world's going to look at you, and you're black. And so feel it, everything, the world's going to see you that way, function that way, just go that direction. And, I could, there's some crap happened to one of my daughters that didn't happen to two of my daughters. They went to different high schools, and I made a mistake of deciding to transfer my daughter into higher academic school. It was predominantly white. And what happened to her there was not good. And that was not that long ago. My daughters are, Well,
I think racism is alive and well in any culture.
Well, yeah.
But I do think that here, you have to worry about your neighborhood, you're walking down the street. I mean, I love your joke about the guy at the bicycle, being at the bus stop on the bicycle.
Yeah.
It's like, what the hell was he doing here anyway? And we kind of have a little bit of that mentality. Well, what is that person doing here anyway? They don't really belong. So why are you here?
I really like what you said about. It's a good point that things have gone up a notch. We've had racism, but now it's got wheels on it. It's got some wheels. It feels very much like the 60s to me. When I was a little girl in 68, remember we had race riots in this country, and with the 60s, my parents were very much these white people. Didn't realize I was in a segregated community because I was a little kid. I just went to school, went out the door, didn't think anything of it. Everybody on our street was poor like we were, but they were all poor white people. And it's where I was living at the time. And the TV would be on, and it isn't like now where it's 24/7 in the 60s. There was only so many shows, so many shows on. And the summer of 68, there was many riots, and it bled through. Like my parents didn't turn the TV. We saw it, and that's what this reminds me of. It feels a whole lot like 1968.
Because
the assassination was it Martin
Luther King?
But it was also the assassination of Bobby Kennedy.
Oh, yeah.
And it was also the race riots in Chicago.
Yeah.
And talk about I remember thinking when it was New Year's Eve, and people saying, and on the TV, I got to stay up late for Johnny Carson, and like, oh, this was a bad year, and that's what it feels like now.
I think more than anything, they just feel like they have somebody in the White House. David Duke, the leader of the KKK, he came out and he thanked the president for basically not standing up against what happened in
oh my God,
in Charlotte. He went on camera and he thanked the president.
I missed that one.
But that's the thing. We live because they feel emboldened by this president.
Mm-hmm.
They say, well, we have the government on our side.
And at the end of the day, you can think that, but I don't. I mean, and unfortunately, they're getting away with a lot more. Is it being ended?
Well, when you say they're getting away with a lot more, you're basically saying the government is on their side. The government's already mostly, for the most part, been on their side.
I honestly believe that the government is on anybody's side who pads their pockets really well.
This is true, but also you have to remember that in general, that prison is like the new Jim Crow. This is where they basically try and stuff. I mean, people just, they end up getting put in prison for ridiculous things, and white people for the same crime don't do half as much. It's just...
I do. I think that money does play a big part in it. I mean, I'll bring this up as an example.
Oh, look at this tweet.
John Benet Ramsey.
Oops. So, and there's so much more needed to be said. I mean, it's just one tweet, but look, this one right here. There's no mention.
Yeah.
We will continue to follow developments in Charlottesville, and we'll provide whatever assistance is needed. We are ready, willing, and able.
Assistance for who?
For who? Exactly. Exactly. Are they going to provide white sheets since they forgot to wear them?
Exactly.
Did they burn all their Confederate flags? Don't worry. The government will step up and provide them for you.
We're gonna airlift some.
I see an entire
to you.
I see an entire comedy routine right here. I mean, this is it. There we go. The next set is already pre-written for us.
But that's
dark comedy, granted, but yeah, but that's the way you work it.
But that's the thing. Is it's not just that. It's like, like the Black Lives Matters protests were over like those kids getting killed, right? Mm-hmm. And this was over a statue.
Mm-hmm.
This entire riot was over a statue.
Yeah, they don't have a corpse on the other side. They don't have a pile of them. They just have a statue. It kind of reminds me, do you remember when they did the Oñate statue here in New Mexico?
No.
Okay, so Oñate was a conquistador, whatever, came out here, and they enslaved the native people here.
Uh-huh.
And at one point, Oñate, to keep the men from running away, he chopped off their foot. Oh. He chopped off the foot of many of the, a lot of, I don't remember which pueblo he chopped off their foot. So New Mexico comes along. It's a few hundred years later, right? But I don't think the native people forgot about this. No, they haven't. They put up a statue, and there's a national monument to Don Juan de Oñate. This man, and there was protests, nothing happened, and so during the night, someone came out and cut the foot off the statue. But now, can you imagine what? That's like the Hispanic people rallying and having a rally because they cut the foot off of Don Juan de Oñate. I mean, it's just like same thing. Enslaved the local people, mauled, mutilated, and murdered them, and enforced them to work the farms out here in the middle of New Mexico, which was not exactly a thriving like southern cotton plantation, right?
Yeah.
There were for the time period, lots of money was being made, and wars were being financed, and ships were being bought for. You know what I'm saying? This was here. They had a patch of cotton and beans, maybe. We don't do much cotton up here. Where I'm from down south, we had cotton, but no.
Yeah.
Can you imagine chopping off the foot of someone so they wouldn't? I mean, they did that to slaves in the South for punishment, but that's what Oñate did to the braves. I don't remember in the story how many, if it was one or was numerous. Nevertheless, he cut off a foot just to keep them from running. Oh,
that is so messed
brutality.
up.
And it's not like they had any kind of like sterile equipment back in the 1500s. We're talking pretty brutal stuff.
We're talking about sepsis.
Yeah,
I had sepsis.
Like how many of them died?
Probably a lot. I mean, a lot of people don't.
Let's just burn the wound we'll just burn it with fire, and then that'll kill it. That won't hurt at all.
So many people die of sepsis here in this country already.
They do.
My mom died of that. That's what did her in.
So real quickly, because we're at the end of our hour. What's next for you? I know you're going to Portland.
Yeah, going to Portland. Excited. Portland. Mary Bird and I are going to be going up there.
Are you flying or driving?
We're flying.
That'll be good.
Yes. We got about 5 shows lined up. So
all in Portland?
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. You going to hang out with Nikki Moon?
Yes. Nikki Moon. Man, I loved Nikki Moon since he was the tiniest of babies. Like, he had gotten into comedy, then he left. Mm-hmm. But this, you have to remember, I'm like OG Twitter. Like, back in 2009, me and Nikki Moon were like Twitter friends. And so I was like Nikki, I was like, you need to come out and do comedy. And he's all like, oh, well, I'm not doing comedy right now, blah, blah, blah. And then he came
Maybe
back.
when I turn 14.
Yeah, I think he was like, I think he had turned, I think he was waiting until he turned 21 to come back to comedy. And I think he was like 19 at the time. But I just remember thinking, this kid is so young, and he is so good on the Twitter. Oh, fun fact, Nikki Moon and I share a birthday.
Oh, how cute.
Same day birthday.
When's your birthday?
January 15th.
How cute.
That's awesome.
Cosmic.
So yeah, we have that cosmic comedy connection.
You're his spirit aunt.
We're like,
You're
like I'm his spirit auntie.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call you an auntie. I would call you a kindred spirit.
Well, I would say kindred spirit. I just say auntie because I'm older.
You know,
But you had concern for him in a really wonderful way.
Yeah, I do.
You shorted yourself earlier in your ovaries. It was a good decision. But I do believe you have nurturing and caring. You just expressed it.
I feel nurturing towards towards like younger comics.
Nice.
I just do like young male comics. Like if you ever see me around them,
Mm-hmm.
I do act like the aunt. I do act like that. Like I just kind of like lick my fingers and run it through their hair. Kind of
just straightened up.
I'll be like,
Let me do the mom. The mom face
like,
clean.
I'll say things like, they'll just, I just get protective of them, and then I get really up in their face about things, but like just things that I'm like, you need to calm down, you need to do this, you need to do, and they're like, thanks, Mom.
So you're like the den mother. You're not so much the auntie. You're like a den mother, for like Boy Scouts kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm kind of like a den mother for Boy Scouts, for the worst Boy Scouts that ever existed.
Yeah.
The most naughtiest, the naughtiest Boy Scouts.
So, this is pretty exciting. I want to thank you for coming. And
thank you for having me on.
Thanks for talking about your start, your growth, your journey, and some serious issues, which are awesome.
Yeah, we got spirited, me and Judith.
That's okay. It's okay.
All right. Well, thank you so much
thanks
for having me on.
for coming out again, and I really appreciate it. I'd love to have you on again and talk about other stuff. This is Nicolina Nix, and you're listening to Women, Wit, and Wine, and we're going to sign off right now. Thanks, and have a great evening.